I want to hear some dirt on Mark.
Dirt on Mark. Okay. I don't know. Like he's always giving me a hard time for my first interview. It's not really dirt on Mark. It's just a funny story about Mark. And so I come up for my first interview, 19, in college, and I walk in and I sit in his recliner. That was my first mistake.
Never sit in another man's
recliner. Did you kick the footrest back too?
That was my second mistake.
Oh, jeez.
I kicked my foot back, threw my hands behind my head, and so you got any questions for me? And he tells me this story now. He's like, that kid is either the dumbest son of a gun I ever met or cocky. And he said, I'm still trying to figure that out.
This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Guts, Glory, Ram.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, episode number 170. I am Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury, and despite people's best efforts to muzzle us, yet here we are. Basically, that's the beauty of the internet. Anybody has a voice.
Right. Which I keep getting conspiracy videos from my aunts and uncles, right? I think they've got way too much time on their hands during pandemic.
Well, listen, that demographic in general, that age demographic, them and Facebook.
If they see something, they believe it instantly. It's like, I got a video about a sanitation worker, like a guy that was driving a garbage truck that had all the inside information on what the government is doing right now. I was like, okay, I'll listen to this guy. He should know better.
Yeah.
Well, so we're following up a really big podcast that we had last week, episode number 169, where we let loose the information that we will be shooting Matthews going forward.
Yeah. So if you missed it, head back. It was a short and sweet one. We had Mark and Terry on. We just wanted to kind of get it out there and kind of explain the thought process through it. And I think it's only like 12, 13 minutes. It's super short. So if you'll
really like it if you hate our voices.
Well, they hate our voices. They probably aren't listening at all. So
that's a good point.
Hey, if Mark and Terry were on every week, just think of how big this podcast could be.
It would be successful.
It would be. But
as opposed to what it is now.
Instead, we
got a bunch of crickets. But we do have some shout outs from our listeners. We love it when you guys hop on your podcast player and you review us, and especially reviews in the Apple Podcast app really help us out.
Yeah, this shout out you put on here, I don't believe this is this guy's real name, but go ahead.
It's probably not, because I don't think anyone can have a legal name consisting only of numbers.
Yeah.
So from 353637474.
I wonder if that's his phone number, his social security, missing just a couple digits.
Yeah, it's probably pretty close. So I don't know what their gender is, but they say after y'all's episodes, all y'all's episodes are the superb best. They help so much. Thank you.
Yeah, buddy. Hold on.
Applause. Thinking and talking are two different things.
Dude, it's a lot harder than you would think. I mean, I'm trying to be real quick on the soundboard, but I find myself in the conversation.
No, I totally get it.
Wait a second. We have a sound for that. So,
I'm still trying to learn guitar right now, and
maybe that's a sound effect we should have.
No, we have very few listeners right now. We're going to have less if I do that. But we're not only going to pick the best of our reviews. We're going to be real with this.
Oh, okay. I see this next one. This is the first time I'm reading it. So I agree with...
Good thing I do the show sheet to prep
I agree with this guy, so let's roll.
Hunter Bubba Hall says, please stop the word of the day. I think it's terrible and a complete waste of time. Other than that, I love the show. Keep them coming. You have to give the guy extra credit, and you have to give his feedback a little more credibility because he's not 100% negative.
Hey, yeah, he's a halfway fan, so kudos to this guy.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Hall. So what's next? We diving in?
Featured dirt.
Okay, this is a new segment that we had. We've done one episode so far, and it was with Terry. It was the 248. It's when we had Toxie Hayes on and the guys at Mossy Oak Properties.
And that thing has sold.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, it's under contract. Let's not get ahead
There's
of
a lot
ourselves.
of steps in that process.
Yeah. Let's.
It just shows the power of the podcast, though. Really.
That you know what? That's a good point. I think we
don't
should
act
do more
surprised. Just be like, yeah, it does.
That's right, Tim. So, all right. So let's dig into it. So the Mossy Oak Properties featured dirt is a 947 acre. Oh, wait, let me start over. 947 acres of beautiful rolling hills located in western Kentucky in Crittenden County along the Cumberland River. Man, it's beautiful there in the fall. The property
God's country.
That's right. The property includes a mix of open fields and timberlands with ponds and river frontage, and has been managed by the National Wild Turkey Federation with an eye on conservation, habitat, and land improvement. It's got to be good. It's got to be good for turkeys if they're managing it.
I am thinking about buying it right now, just hearing you read this.
Well, I'm pretty electric. This farm has it all with great deer, turkey, ducks, and other small game. It also has areas that are suitable for duck impoundments and offers fishing along the river and pond. If you're looking for an opportunity to own a large tract of ground, then this property fits the bill. One more info, check out the link in the show notes. Google Mossy Oak Properties 49017. Or call agent Paul Thomas, 270-537-4422.
Bam. Featured dirt. And if you purchase that piece of property from listening to the show, we'll come hunt it for you.
I, at the very least, would give you advice on what I would not do, which is a lot of things, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So
do the opposite of what Matt Drury tells you to do.
And you're in good shape. In life, I hear somebody chuckling.
Someone's giggling.
I think it's our next guest. Let's dive into it.
We got Wade Robinson by viewer request on the show with us today. Wade?
I think it was his wife, Kyle, requesting it, but we won't dive into it. So Wade, if you're living under a rock, Wade is the farm manager for Mark. And it's not, I mean, that's about, 20 different little satellite farms, a big farm here, 2 states, 3 states, Texas. I mean, Wade does a lot of work and has been with us. I mean, how many years has it been now, Wade?
This is my 10th fall. So
wow, look at this guy. How you have stayed with Mark for 10 years, I will never know.
Well, that's still up in the air. I don't know how either, but it's been great.
One of the word on the street is Mark is particular about things.
No. Mark and Terry are the most 2 particular people in opposite ways that I've ever met. So anybody that works with them on a day in and day out basis and works for them in something that they care so much about, especially like their farms. Yeah. I mean, these guys work their butts off, and it's not just that. It's not just the kind of 24/7 farm work they got to do. Then you go into the hunting season
media stuff,
and they're camera guys, they're hunters, they're everything in between, guides, we have guests in. So these guys wear a lot of different hats and do a hell of a job at it. So,
well, not to add any added pressure to Wade, and I don't know if you thought about it this way, but really the whole Drury Outdoors doesn't work if Mark and Terry aren't killing deer. And so that's a big process and a big system. And so there's a lot of weight on those sweaty shoulders of yours, Wade.
Yeah, actually, we were out just loading analogics in the truck to go put that out and put our first round of cameras out to get that first survey in. So
yeah, you guys
are excited to get that in.
You guys, Mark's notorious for trying to wait as long as he can so he doesn't get a bunch of deer in early July because he's got so many cameras out.
Exactly. There. Yeah, he's just got so many cameras, and they're not fully developed till late July anyway. So we try and get our cameras out around July 25th, July 20th. We'll start putting them out. And it seems like our best photos are from about July 25th through about August 10th, our best summer photos. So,
well, the reason that our viewers and listeners wanted Wade on the show, I think is because they want the background. Like they want to know behind the scenes, what are some of the principles? Like, how do you guys manage these properties in a way that consistently produce quality whitetails? Because ultimately people want to know how to do this stuff for themselves.
Well, and the other part about it, these guys are really successful during the fall. So it's not only that I have a couple decent deer on my farm because I can't kill them. These guys are killing their deer every year. And they always have an up and comer,
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to dive into it here and kind of get your thoughts, Wade, because you guys have been doing it very well for a long time and it's very consistent. And I think that's what every hunter's looking for, consistency in what their farm, what the deer herd is producing year in and year out. Yeah.
You suck.
Yeah. and I think like the biggest part is like back to whenever you said how particular Mark is. Whenever I started this job, I didn't really know. I did a little bit of farming on the side and a lot of hunting, but no camera work, no nothing. So Mark kind of taught me how he liked it done, and that's all I know. So I think that has helped me a lot just go on throughout all these years, just listening to Mark and doing, what he says. And it has, I don't know, just made us mesh together that much better because I didn't really know any other way than his way. So, I wasn't never controversial with him or anything on anything. So just go with what he thinks, and it's worked out great. So
it's hard to argue. It's like, the track record is pretty much there. So it's one of those things where, you started when you were probably like 19?
19. Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, we all probably like to think we know everything, but kudos to you because you kind of sit back and you say, hey, whatever
open to learn.
Yeah, whatever you can learn so much from Mark and Terry because their strategies, they've tried everything.
Yeah.
And so what resonates with them now, it's been through trial and error. And that's what we show on 13. That's what we show on the DeerCast app. That's what we talk about on the podcast. I think that's why they've succeeded through the years. It's always been trial and error. And what we present is what we find that has worked.
Right.
And so if you're working for them, there's a lot that can be learned there. I think back Aaron Bennett, Tim Sigler, there's a lot of guys that have come through the ranks and Ryan Arup that have helped them on the farms through the years. And those guys always go on to, be very knowledgeable in the whitetail woods.
Sure.
And Aaron, he's a very successful listing agent, for land. And so it's one of those things where you find out what you need to look for exactly, not only when you're surveying a piece of property, but how to plant it, how to hang it, how to hunt it, all of it.
It's like anything in life. As long as you have enough humility to learn as you go, you're going to keep making progress.
For sure.
So Wade, I'm curious, like what overarching principles have you learned from Mark over the years? What are some of the kind of the rules, the things you do always and the things you never do? Just kind of big picture.
Yeah. Well, I would say number one, just being able to keep deer on the farm is Mark has always been really big on this. It's go in one time with everything you need. Like if you're going to go in and do a food plot, granted, you can't do all the steps in one day, but do as many as you can one time in, one time out. So you're not pushing the deer that you're trying to hunt off the farm. So biggest thing is just, make your trips, as least as possible in and out of the farms and through the farms.
Yeah. Basically the intrusion side of it. We talk about that all
really
the time.
Intrusion.
Yep. Try not to put your scent out there. Even in the off season, it does more damage than you think.
Exactly. Yeah. And, always whispering on the farms, just trying to be as covert as possible, if you will. So, that's a huge thing with Mark. And, other than that, that kind of sums up pretty much everything. Just the least amount of intrusion on the farm, the better.
Does the whispering stop once you're off the property, or do you guys continue to whisper to each other?
Well, actually, we catch ourselves whispering once we get back in the truck. We're like, okay, we're in the truck. What are we whispering?
The doors are closed.
It's over.
Yeah.
We don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I get that side, the intrusion side, but strategies on food plot architecture, what, general principles, what have you kind of learned on that side of things?
We always like to watch, like if we get a new farm, we always like to watch and try and figure it out the first year. And then, we'll go in and make a kill plot. Like if we're hunting over like a big standing bean field or something, we'll go in and make a green field, to a design where it's a lot easier to bow hunt. And, another thing, like on the planting side of things is we like to, err to the side of a little bit later on the planting, just so that it's more palatable as soon as season hits. Because, you see some guys planting early, early to mid-July, and, they got beautiful green food plots because they got all the rain. But, they ain't going to be as good as they could be until a little bit later in the year once those the frosts hit and turns those bulbs and stuff a little bit sweeter. But so like on the food plot planting side of things, we always err. Granted, you have to work with the rain, but err towards a little bit later, like August 20th.
Yeah.
In Iowa is whenever we try and get most of our stuff in, and it seems like the palatability is about perfect come October 1st.
Yeah, and in Missouri you are about the same in September 15th when the season opens. So basically you're trying to capture that green, the growth as it's coming up, and it's kind of the most nutritious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and whenever your beans start to turn yellow, you get that huge green to green transfer that where all the bachelor groups and stuff are transferring off those big destination fields right to your food plot.
Which I imagine gives you an edge over your neighbors who maybe planted as soon as they could just to get everything in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they'll definitely prefer those young green growing plants over those big, lush 3-foot plants. So in the early seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the misnomers might be that you guys have, one big farm. It's, several thousand acres or what have you, but it's really, you guys succeed. What I've always marveled at, Mark, and you guys, is the plan that you have. It's satellite farms. It might be 90 acres, 120 acres. Not that that's not, those are big farms, as well, but it's not that it's always this big 1,000-acre tract. It's a lot of times you guys are succeeding
Very
off of
strategic.
what we call these satellite farms.
Yeah, and one of our best Missouri farms is a 40-acre piece. Actually, Taylor killed Morris there last year.
Mm-hmm.
We always seem to succeed there every single year. But, I think Mark's biggest reasoning for all these satellite farms, he's switched over. He had big farms in the past, but, he's kind of transferred over to several different satellite farms once EHD started really kicking our butts. And, EHD is so pockety, it allows for other farms to be good if one gets hit, because if you have one big farm and it gets hit, you have nothing.
You're wiped out.
The season's done. So, we've got farms spread out in Iowa. I would say roughly 30 miles, 30 miles from a north farm to our south farm. So, I think the satellite strategy definitely has been working for us.
And are you
really
guys moving equipment between all those properties?
Yeah. We got a little trailer and tractor that we bounce from satellite farm to satellite farm, but most of our stuff is within a 10-mile radius. I could drive our big tractor and bigger implements to those, but yes, on our far south farms and our far north farms, we have to trailer the littler tractor up and transfer it that way.
Well, and that goes into Mark's thought process when he's looking at a farm, whether it's to lease or to own. I had an opportunity. I just passed over to him yesterday, him and Terry, and he's like, too far for me. And it might be, it's on the Iowa-Missouri border, but it's just too far east for him.
Doesn't fit the strategy.
Exactly. He very much stays within his strategy of the Missouri, the northern Missouri, area that you guys are in, or that southern Iowa area that you're in.
And that just goes back to what I was talking about earlier with our food plot strategies. We always wait. You got about maybe not even 24 hours. It's hours to get all the food plots in, to get them to the right palatability. You got rain. You always watch for that rain coming, and you just got a few hour window to get them all in. So, if you got a farm an hour and a half away, you have to trailer everything down there. Heck, you're looking at a day at least just to do that farm by itself. Whereas up here, you could bounce and get a lot of them done.
So these guys are always busy, but when we talked about having weight on, I'm like, this might be about our last chance, because they're fixing to get to where Mark's going to be running them 24/7 to get all those food plots in. And really, as you guys create your plan, you're looking at a map and you're saying, all right, I got to get the implement from this farm to this farm. So you got to have a strategy as you work your way up through it. And that's the kind of the mad scientist at work and figuring out how and what, and to basically utilize your time to the best of your ability.
I packed a bunch of stuff this morning before I left to come here, because I'm going to go hang a stand after work tonight. And like, it's not a big deal if I forget something. My house is like 15 minutes from the property. If you guys forget something, like it's more of a hassle.
That again, that goes back to my point earlier about having everything you need in one trip, because one thing that will upset Mark, and that's making multiple trips, unnecessary multiple trips to a farm.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Imagine.
Like, these guys, poor guys, had to learn the hard way.
You don't want to make that phone call.
And he'll never let you live it down.
Oh no, you'll hear about it for the next at least week over dinner every night.
Well, one of the things I'm fascinated by is Mark's process for placing a blind and the access and how he plants around that. Maybe talk through that whole process.
Yeah, again, access is number one. You've got to have a good access in and out, because if you come in and are blowing deer out, not even knowing it, the deer ain't there to even hunt, so you're not going to see them. So access is number one. And then like we plant to our pictures from the previous years, like when deer show up, when we're trying to target certain deer. So like if we're trying to target a deer in the earlier seasons, we use the deer radishes. We'll put them close within bow range, and then maybe something like winter bulbs and sugar beets, or last bite for a little bit later in the season if we're trying to gun hunt at the further distances. But we always try and make our green field substantial enough to draw as many deer as possible. So we just use the different product strategy to get the deer close with a bow during early season. We always either do clover or radishes. Seems like a really good early season product for them. And then whenever we switch over to the muzzleloaders and shotguns, we'll put winter bulbs and sugar beets or last bite out at a further distance. So we still got the full green, and they'll browse around on the other stuff. But it seems like the biggest draw early season for archery is the radishes.
This stuff, when you hear it, you just think, duh, that makes so much sense. But these guys had to figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, I did not listen to Mark and Terry on that for a couple of years, and I never saw any success on the lease. I never saw any deer. It was the wrong timing. Yeah. And then last year I finally had planted radishes, and it was unbelievable. Early season, they just mauled it. So it just, I don't know. Sometimes you get in your own way, and the information's out there. You just, it's there's so many choices. Sometimes you outthink yourself. You know what I mean?
Right. And this is not a shameless plug for DeerCast, but people will ask like, hey, what should I plant when? Or there's so much of that in DeerCast, especially in the gamekeepers tips segment of the DoD portion of the app. There's so much there so that people don't have to struggle through and learn this stuff on their own and waste time in the field.
Yeah, we did a bunch of interviews with Austin Delano from Biologic, Mossy Oaks Biologic, and he we got, I don't know how many tips are in there. There's probably 20 or so at least. So
yeah, because go ahead, Wade.
And another thing, like to food plot architecture, we always try for, like, if we're again trying to hunt early season with a bow, if we carve something out in a bean field, we always like to do like the football size green field, like 50 yards to the left, 50 yards to the right, and 50 yards across. And it allows for you to shoot about the whole plot. And if you're wanting a little bit more substantial size field, we'll do the horseshoe shape and make them walk within bow range, at that pinch, right in front of you, and do stuff a little bit further for later season. And we actually just designed a new food plot yesterday, had my stepbrother up, and we did that same exact deal. We just made a berm of cedars to make them walk around the horseshoe right within bow range. So it's going to be an awesome plot, and I'm pretty certain we'll have success on that plot. So
nice.
Those are our two favorite shapes of food plot, if you will. The football size and then the horseshoe, and they work to perfection. And if you get real crafty, you make a little pond right at the tip of the horseshoe. I'm sure everybody has seen that project that we worked on down there on that 120 farm. That horseshoe shaped field with the watering hole right there at 30 yards is just absolutely perfect.
We can link that too. I remember. I know what you're talking about there. It's one of the videos. What people love digging into those land management videos from Mark or Terry and seeing 100%. Just how they're taking a blank kind of slate and putting their touch on it.
Because the reality is, if you're doing this work, you're spending money and you're spending time. So why not do it right and do it the most effectively and get some return on that?
For sure.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
So, one of the things that is not food plot related, I want to hear
food plot.
Yeah. I want to hear a funny story about Mark.
Dirt.
I want dirt on the boss.
He won't watch this. Funny story on Mark.
He won't watch it, so don't worry.
Oh, he'll watch it. He'll watch it to see what I have to say. I don't know. I have to think about that one. We'll have to come back to that one, but I'll come up with something.
All right. We're coming back to it.
Well, how about we help out our buddy Chad, who has this week's question of the day.
All right. The question of the day is probably brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here.
What are some good minerals to use, or what minerals do you guys use on your farm in Iowa and Missouri?
Thank you, Chad, for the question. Another listener who is being held at gunpoint while delivering the question.
They're always scared to death. Yeah, so it's a good question, but before we jump into it, in some of our spots, like in Missouri, certain counties, you can't put that stuff out.
CWD county.
Is Mercer's one of those counties, isn't it? You guys...
Correct. Yeah, it borders a CWD county, so we can't put out minerals in there at that county, but we do have another couple farms in Harrison County that we are able to put out mineral in.
Yeah. And I have one in Pike that I can as well. So, but go ahead. What's I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but go for it.
Yeah. So, most of it, we just rely on the Analogics line, whether it be Supplement Gold, as a feed, but has tons of mineral and tons of attraction. Like I said earlier, that's what we're actually putting out right now for our camera surveys, and they absolutely just hammer it early August. We get some of the best pictures within 10 days to 2 weeks. We have every buck that's on the farm hit that pile of Analogics, and we'll do about 75 to 100 pounds in each camera spot. And man, they consume it within that 2 weeks for sure. So,
yeah.
But, we also put out the 180, the Mineral Dirt 180.
Yep.
We've seen really good success over that, but man, it's hard to beat that Supplement Gold. We just we feed it in the off season, right after season in February, and we put out a little bit bigger out a little bit bigger piles that time of year. But you got literally the whole farm on that pile of feed, and it just pushes them on through those winter months whenever there's a foot of snow on the ground. So that's our go-to for sure.
Yeah. Mineral Dirt for me, which I use the Supplement Gold as well. But the Mineral Dirt, they also have those blocks, and they have stuff that you can pour, like a liquid that you could pour over it. And it's, like some of the biggest deer I've ever had on the lease, they get addicted to it. It's crazy.
How's it taste?
It tastes like apple. Or persimmon, based on what you like.
Licking your finger.
Well, that liquid, I just kind of jug it like out of the milk.
Swish it around a little bit. It's delicious.
It's going to be a great day.
Save some for the deer, Matt.
That's right.
They just like Granny Smith apples.
That's right.
Some stuff smells better than it tastes.
Yeah.
Like coffee.
Well, and that's I've seen it. Like, say I run out of Analogics or whatever, and I just have to stop at MFA and grab, a couple, 50-pound bags of corn or something, just for summertime camera surveys. And the amount of pictures I get, and I think anybody would attest, like, hey, you put corn out, you're going to get great pictures. It's not even close. The amount of pictures you get when I throw out that gold, the Annie Gold, it's not even close. They just maul it. It's freaking crazy, man.
It's unbelievable, the consumption rate on that stuff. Like I said, whenever there's a foot of snow on the ground, we put out a lot in one spot and it's gone within 2 weeks. It's unbelievable.
You guys you won't pile it up. You'll draw out a line, across a field edge or something.
Because we just put it in our gravity wagons and we just put out a long line of it, maybe 100 yards long, and maybe like 8-10 inches deep. And just so that the deer aren't all in one spot and have that social stress on them. They're spread out, and it just works. It's crazy. And it's helpful for finding sheds too, because you go back to put more feed out and just pick them up right off the pile.
Yeah. And really, I mean, the ultimate reason that you guys are doing it, the health side of it is crazy. The benefits, especially that time of year when they're kind of malnutrition a little bit after the season's over and they've been running hard. So it helps in a lot of different ways. And the attractant side is just a really big benefit for shed hunting or for camera surveys in the summer or whatever. So
we could probably do a whole additional podcast on the concept of social stress, because I know that's something Mark always talks about that doesn't get a whole lot of play in kind of the general whitetail world.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Grant Woods was so influential on Mark and Terry and their mindset in that regard. And then, of course, they spend so much time out there watching the deer herd and just hunting every day, day in and day out. They can see it for themselves. Yeah, so I think it's something over time that they've really evolved into trying to put the least amount of stress on the herd as possible. And there's a lot of benefits, and one just happens to be that the antler growth too, and less stress and better antler growth.
Sure. It seems like those farms that have less deer always have that bigger deer too. That makes sense. You may have just a few deer on the whole farm, but it seems like it allows those bucks to get that much bigger versus a farm where there's 50 to 100 deer in the field every single night. It just kind of seems like it shrinks them down. They all look the same.
And that's been Terry's problem really since day one on his farm there in Missouri. And he gets really aggressive trying to harvest does and having people helping him harvest does. And it just doesn't, EHD hit last year. So we'll see this year, if it makes any difference, but so far based on what the cameras are showing them, it doesn't seem like it's just, they always seem to grow about beautiful deer. I'm talking the 150 to 100. He might have something touch 160 every once in a while, but it's a rare occasion when he gets something that's 170 or higher. And there's really no reason there shouldn't be deer there. He's got a decent sized property. It's beautiful.
One of the most beautiful farms I've ever seen.
The amount of food that they plant, it's crazy, but they got too many deer. And it's just, no matter how many he tries to harvest, it's almost like he just can't keep up with it.
And that's kind of like, I was talking to one of our DeerCast contributors, Erin Merrill, who is out in Maine, and she just cannot believe the sheer numbers of deer they got people out there that hunt by tracking a single deer through the woods, over the mountains, and hoping to get a glimpse of it. And here we're like fighting through a mess of does and smaller bucks to find something that we want to harvest. Yeah. Totally different world.
Yeah. And I think it's even totally different for maybe your average farm, in the Midwest too. They're not all like that, obviously. And so it's one of those things where Mark and Terry's places, they're set up to do this sort of thing. So there's no intrusion, very little intrusion. They plant a lot of food and they leave it there, so it's just set up differently. We understand that, it's not your typical, farm, but that said, there's still, I know more and more people that have farms that are becoming that way because they're using the same strategies.
Yeah. And it mirrors what I face hunting in suburbia. I mean, it's not like poor Tim. There's a ton of deer in suburbia. There are just too many. Yeah. And obviously there are safety issues and things with that, but it's hard to find a really good buck because, like what you're saying, Wade, there's a lot of social stress. There's a lot of social stress on the food resource that's there. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
Chad, thank you for leaving us the question. Sorry, we made fun of you a little bit, but we kid because we love. If you, that's a great noise.
I don't know there you go.
Right. If you want to leave a question, just go to the link in the show notes, click that, and then click send voicemail, leave your name, location, and quick question. We'll do our best to get it answered on the show. All right. You boys ready for the wildlife word?
Let's do it. Hunter Bubba Hall is not ready for this, but
he's tuned out.
Bubba, this is where you tune out.
Right. So it's another multiple choice. The word is cryptorchidism. Cryptorchidism. Is it a birth defect where both testicles remain in the abdominal cavity of a buck?
Wade.
Is it A, when a fawn's...
A.
Okay, Wade's on for A and he hasn't heard anything else. When a fawn's umbilical cord never detaches and forms a hardened whip-like appendage. C, a branch of cryptozoology maintaining that all cervids, including whitetails, were transplanted by aliens. Or D, a condition where one or both of whitetails' antlers spontaneously combust rather than normally shed.
I think it's got to be A or B. I thought you were going to have a Superman reference or something on here. I was waiting for that.
Krypton.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Sorry.
No,
Failed.
I'm going to go with B.
Okay. So when a fawn's umbilical cord never detaches and forms a hardened whip-like appendage.
Yeah. I'm going to go with B. I guess I didn't hear that. I'm going to go with A.
Used for defense.
You suck, Matt.
All right.
I can't read.
Wade and Matt are both down for A birth defect where both testicles remain in the abdominal cavity of a buck. And that's absolutely true. A lot of times, of course, bucks that have this condition their antler cycle will be off. Like they'll maintain their velvet way longer in the year than they normally should.
I see. I killed a deer like that. It's probably back in 2006, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy. It had velvet. So one side was kind of mangled a little bit and had velvet on. The other side was like 160 class deer and had velvet on it. And he was limping real bad. Well, I killed him. And when we came up on him, his body was like mush. It was like he had been
like atrophying.
It was weird. It was totally weird. I don't know what was going, like if he got hit by a car or if he had been shot before or what. We had no idea, but
did him a favor.
Yeah. He had velvet still kind of on his rack or whatever.
Weird.
So were the testicles up in the abdominal cavity? That's the real question, Matt.
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Isn't that the first thing you check? Have these things descended yet?
Hey,
$200 is $200.
I mean, if someone's going to pay to do it. Might as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was probably about as good a time as any to shut this thing down.
No. I want to hear some dirt on Mark.
Dirt on Mark. Okay. I don't know. Like he's always giving me a hard time for my first interview. It's not really dirt on Mark. It's just a funny story about Mark. And so I come up for my first interview, 19, in college, and I walk in and I sit in his recliner. That was my first mistake.
Never seen another man's
recliner. Did you kick the footrest back too?
That was my second mistake.
Oh, jeez.
I kicked my foot back, threw my hands behind my head, and so you got any questions for me? And he tells me this story now. He's like, that kid is either the dumbest son of a gun I ever met or cocky. And he said, I'm still trying to figure that out. But
that's a pretty bold move. That is a power move.
Me not knowing anything about anything and just being 19 and dumb. And
the only thing worse you could have done is kept your boots on. If you had your boots.
I did. I kept my boots on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
trifecta.
So he goes back and he said that's why he initially hired me. He said he's got to figure this out, and he's still trying to figure it out. That's why he's keeping me around.
He told me that when he hired you, when you came, your truck was spotless. He always looks inside the vehicle to see if it's trashed or if it's spotless. He goes, you could tell a lot about a person when it's like that.
Yeah.
And he said yours was spotless, and he goes, he must have just cleaned it because everything he's got since has been a pigsty.
Exactly. So just clean it before, make sure everything looks nice,
That's right.
And it was all immaculate. But that is probably one of my biggest downfalls is organization. So
hey, you know what? I'm sure Mark never gets on you about it.
He's there to offer constructive
not
feedback.
At all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I'm still going to wait for that. We're going to have you back on and start thinking about some dirt on Mark. Cause I know you got it. Something that's friendly to the podcast.
Maybe make sure to have a second job lined up just in case things go south. Just saying. I think Forrest and Wade have made themselves pretty invaluable to Mark and Terry. It's not that they couldn't move on without them, but it sure would be hard because these guys, they do work their butts off. And Mark and Terry, as they get a little bit older, it's when you trust someone to basically have the keys to your gate, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. and they trust these guys. And that's the hardest part of hiring somebody and bringing them into the fold, and to have the trust in them, not just the work ethic side, which these guys have, but the trust that they're not going to screw something up on your property or, do something they shouldn't be doing. And so it's, these guys are invaluable in a lot of ways.
No doubt. And they get to kill a few deer along the way.
Wade.
What's that?
I was saying you guys get to kill a few deer along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wade's the son Mark never had.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun together for sure.
And much less of a pain in the butt than Taylor. You actually get up for the morning hunts.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably let Wade get back to work. He took a few minutes out, and we appreciate that.
Yep. Back to the analogics and Reconyx cameras.
All righty. We got a stack of the new cell cameras here waiting for you guys. So once Mark comes back in the studio, I'm sure you'll be putting out the new cell cameras, and we're going to see how they do.
Yep. Pictures will be rolling in.
All righty.
Sweet. Well, Wade is here because our viewers and listeners requested it. If you guys think of anyone else that you want on the show, just let us know in the comments.
All right. Thanks, Wade. Get after it today. Good luck this season.
Have a good day.
Can't wait to see what you guys put down.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.